I thought this was amusing as per usual. First amusing thing is there's no one up there really. I think there's one guy, and it's Christmas Eve, and this is probably the largest Jesus statue, maybe in Nicaragua for sure. It will be one of the largest ones in Central America at least. And there's no one there on Christmas Eve. So that's the first thing that's interesting, but just the second thing is the best. And I'm not going to go up there on moral principle. I was just going to have a stroll. I mean, it's obviously not as grand as the one in Rio, but you have to pay to see Jesus, which is, on just so many levels is absolutely insane. Imagine if you had a mosque. Again, I always relate the kind of difference between religions and how Christianity is being intentionally destroyed everywhere and how it's acceptable just to completely undermine it. If you built a mosque and then started to charge people, or there was some kind of religious kind of iconography of a different faith, and you weren't allowed up unless you paid an entrance fee, like, it would be knocked down instantaneously. There'd be a revolution. Whoever started the the fee-paying process would probably be lynched, and quite rightly, in my opinion. It's extraordinary, isn't it? You have to pay. Got to pay to see Jesus. No doubt, an American built it. I think it's a Nicaraguan, but either way, yeah, it sums up this country rather well, I think. I can't say the stories that people have told are in any way accurate. Again, most people that travel are just gap year teens that don't have any experience elsewhere. It's kind of just a singular trip. But when you kind of contextualize it with the rest of the region or other places in the world, Nicaragua is not a bad place, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly not hyped. It's not. The hype that represents it isn't justified, I should say. Like, El Salvador was really worth the visit as a comparison. People there were truly, actually, some of the nicest people I've ever met. Here, everyone tries to essentially rob you and steal from you. There's very few places where you don't, especially in the tourist areas, I'm speaking for kind of the tourist areas here, where they don't try and rob you. You expect that everywhere in the world to an extent, but here it's really substantial, really, really substantial. So I actually cancelled my Nicaraguan trip because of this by actually 10 days, which is about half the trip to Nicaragua, just because it's really, really just not great. It's basically filled, like all of this, it's just filled with awful American and Canadian expats, the same ones that go to Cancun and get trashed. Don't get me wrong, there's other countries in there, but it is primarily North Americans, naturally, as given the proximity of the place. And they're just fucking obnoxious, in my opinion. And then, that's kind of, I'm not going to say that's corrupted, because I don't place that kind of blame. That takes a very liberal view. Someone acts criminally, they corrupt, they're responsible for their own actions. And Nicaraguan people are really ripping people off here quite substantially. And I've explained in a past video, I think, the context of that, especially with respect to the buses. If you take public transport, so from Granada, anywhere between Granada and Costa Rica, which is kind of like a prime trail for a lot of tourists going back and forth between Liberia Airport in Costa, and then you've got Managua Airport, and then of course the route northwards and indeed south. But they charge all tourists double the price, and then they laugh in your face, and there's really nothing that can be done about it except hitchhike, unless you're lucky to find that 1% bus, which is actually operated by an honest man. But basically a local mafia has taken control of all the buses, probably pay off the police, and they charge people just double if you're not from Nicaragua, which is obviously illegal. But it's really, like, I've never seen it to this extent anywhere else in the world. You expect it from time to time, but it's really, really poor vibe place, I have to say. The coast, that is. If you go up to Leon, it's really quite nice, and Las Penitas is again more a little better, but it's still, it's only time until that kind of gets corrupted as well. So I'll leave it at that. A positive on the festive period, but that's the Jesus statue. I just made the video for that, so there we go.